5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman from Florida, and I am pleased this morning to speak about technology assessment as a tool for our legislative work. This bill funds the tools that allow us to do our best on behalf of the 300 million Americans. Every issue that comes before us, virtually every issue, has some aspects of science and technology. Yet this Congress has not brought great credit to ourselves for our ability to deal with science and technology issues, or to recognize emerging trends or the implications of technology. Fortunately, we do not have to reinvent a tool to help us in this. 4 decades ago, Congress created the Office of Technology Assessment, a congressional support agency with a professional staff. It produced reports that were noteworthy for their factual basis, for their balanced and impartial presentation, for their nonpartisan framing, and their forward-looking perspective. The OTA, as it was known, functioned well for 25 years. It produced reports on such topics as retiring old cars, programs to save gasoline and reduce emissions. That was in 1992. Reports on bringing health care online, electronic surveillance in the digital age, impacts of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and on and on. The OTA study of Alzheimer's, Losing a Million Minds, became the Bible for Alzheimer's policy in America. The OTA study on Social Security computer systems resulted in changes saving hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. The OTA study on syn fuels resulted in policy changes saving far more money than was ever spent on the Office of Technology Assessment itself. The OTA study on the use of genetic testing in the workplace as a tool of discrimination and bias laid the groundwork for the excellent legislation that Representative Slaughter, the chair of the Rules Committee, developed in the Genetic Non-Discrimination Act. An OTA report on electronic delivery of federal services led to the Food Stamp Fraud Reduction Act, and on and on. But in a fit of budget cutting, OTA's work was stopped 14 years ago, with the explanation that the work could be obtained elsewhere, from other government agencies, from other congressional agencies, from interest groups, from universities, from our friends back home, from some other sources. Well, we've done the experiment. It didn't work. We have not gotten what OTA provided in the 14 years since OTA stopped operations. Stopping OTA's functioning was a stupendous act of false economy. We have not gotten the equivalent, useful, relevant work, not from think tanks, not from interest groups, not from our universities or friends back home. A former member of Congress described stopping the funding for OTA as a congressional self-imposed lobotomy. Mr. Speaker, we have the opportunity to provide ourselves this useful tool. Yet the rule before us today does not allow the funding of this agency. It could have been done for a pittance, far less. When OTA was fully functioning, it was far less than 1% of the budget of the legislative branch. Let me, if I may finish a point here. So what are we missing? Well, let me postulate that if OTA had been functioning in recent years, we could have expected helpful, relevant reports on preparing for global pandemics. Congress might well have required that there be communications in mines such as the Sago mine.
I yield the gentleman an additional minute in hopes that he will yield to the gentlelady from Florida.
Gentleman is recognized for an additional 1 minute.
We might have had communications equipments in the mine, such as the Sago mine, that would have allowed the miners to get out alive. I expect that we would have had better legislation dealing with corn-based ethanol. I believe that we would have recognized through OTA studies the overdependence of the financial sector on mathematical models. We are missing out on a lot, Mr. Speaker. But I've decided that in my exasperation, as I wonder why in the world Congress would deprive itself of this useful tool, I've decided that the very reason we need OTA, our discomfort with things scientific and technological, our inability to deal with such things, is exactly what makes it difficult for us to recognize that we need it. With that, I yield the remaining time to the
getting
gentlelady.
expired. Gentlewoman from North Carolina, what purpose you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do need to fund adequately our offices, the Capitol Police, for whom I have the greatest respect, the Library of Congress, a real jewel for our country.